welcome to this week's episode of Be Freaking Awesome. I am one of your hosts, Sami Kinnison, here with Angela Belford, and today we have two super special guests with us. I'm really excited about this. Number one, we have Kat Gretzmier. Now, those of you may not realize, but Kat is actually involved in the podcast every single week. She is our editor and producer extraordinaire, probably our biggest fan, and I'm super excited to have her on this side of the podcast, not just on the back end. So thanks for being here, Kat. And then our next guest is the one, the only Lexi Belford. That's right. Longtime listeners have joked that maybe a third Belford child doesn't exist because she hasn't been on the podcast, but it's not true. And she's here with us today, and I'm so excited. How are you guys doing?
Good.
I'm doing great.
Lexi, any thoughts on the mythical appearance of you here?
I'm glad that I can make my appearance known as the favorite kid. That's why I'm never on here, because I'm just the favorite, and they just don't.
Too busy spending time
I'm also
with
just
mom
really
and dad.
busy.
Yeah,
Exactly. But I do exist. I am a real person. I'm not just a made up thing that they like to make stories about.
That's so funny. Well, we are actually really excited to talk about this. We're going to be talking about family business today, and we have a pretty interesting relationship and story between Kat and Lexi and how they both interact with family businesses. So we wanted to take some time, check in, and talk about this. Angela, do you want to tell the story, or do you want me to?
Well, yeah. So I went to so Dave Gretzmier of the Lighting Master is a business in Northwest Arkansas who's been a client of mine. He loves to brag and say, "I have been a client so long, I got to come to the basement." Because we used to office in our basement, and I didn't let very many people come to the basement. I would always, let me meet you with you. So anyway, so he's been around since about 2009, and we both love to travel. And so we, typically when we've done big trips, we'll get together for lunch so we can ooh and ah. It's like somebody else that loves to travel will let you tell all your travel stories. So we were getting together for lunch a couple of years ago, and he was lamenting how hard it was to find good employees that were consistent, that would show up. He had posted and had people respond to applications and wouldn't even show up for the interview. He's like, if they're not going to show up for the interview, how would they show up? So anyway, I said, well, that's funny because Lexi is in a situation where she's kind of lamenting how hard it is to get employers to call you back, and they won't call you back. So I don't know, maybe y'all are a fit. And so Lexi went and they met and talked, and she started working for them. And then actually I'm going to throw it over to Lexi, because then she's the one that kind of instigated this next piece.
So I started working for the Gretzmiers at the Lighting Master, and Kat actually came up to me and was like, "So what exactly does your mom do?" And I was like, "Well, they kind of like do this." I gave her like, it's like they run a marketing agency. They do a lot of social media and design and stuff like that. And I was like, honestly, I don't know. It's just always expanding. And so she was like, "Do you think they're possibly hiring?" And I was like, "I don't know, but I can set up a meeting with my mom. Like, I can ask her." And then I think like the next day they set up a Zoom for like the following week. And then Kat started working for my parents.
yeah.
Yeah, Kat, what prompted you to want to ask Lexi a little bit more?
I don't know. I kind of knew what you guys did from the idea of like having my dad work with you guys for so long, and I was interested enough to like seek out more information. And then once I heard about it, I was like, oh, this actually sounds really cool. I wonder if they'll give me a job. And luckily enough, I got a job, and now I'm still here. So I think I'm pretty good at it. So there we go.
Well,
basically just did a daughter swap.
We did. Well, and the way we did that, I feel like we wanted to protect the relationship. So one of the things that we did, because we value the Gretzmiers not only as longtime clients, but also as friends. And so we're like, we don't know if this will work out, but we're willing to do a paid internship where you can work for us part-time for about 90 days, 3 or 4 months. And that way, at the end of 90 days, if you don't like it, you can say peace out. And if we think that maybe this isn't the right career path, or maybe you do need to go get some education before you pursue this, then we'll say this was lovely. Here's our recommendations. So we did want to protect the relationship by setting some really clear boundaries up front. And it has worked out, because what's cool about having family owned business children is that they get it. They get that this is like your name's on the door, so to speak.
So it's interesting you talk about your name on the door, because well, one, I'm in family business and technically my name is not on the door because I changed my name. However, I think that it is really interesting when you think about the difference between like an owner's mindset and an employee's mindset. And Kat and Lexi, I think you guys both end up with this really neat blend of I am an employee and I'm not going to be thinking about this business all the time and all my off hours as an owner. And yet you guys still take more ownership and recognize, I think, more the reputation. And I don't know, there's just an extra oomph to the work when you do get it. You do get that this is the family business, and if the family business doesn't come through, like that gets stressful and all of these things. Do you guys feel a pressure to?
Well, and I see it with Lexi specifically when she knows how important it is for the Gretzmiers to get to go on a family vacation and know that somebody's got the store. None of us are running an actual store, but somebody is taking care of things. So I don't know if she feels pressure, but I know that that's one time when I see her really taking responsibility.
I do feel a lot of pressure then, like when they're all gone, because it's like they still want to know what's going on. Anna, Dave's oldest daughter, who's also running the business with him, she's always like, what's going on? Like, have we heard back from this person? And I try to like make sure she stays informed, as well as being like, dude, you're on vacation. Like, I got it. I can hold down the fort. I've done this multiple times. So it's kind of a balance like that, as well as right now, like Anna's actually on maternity leave. So I'm having that more of that leadership role right now that she's gone. So trying to make sure that everything, like she has that security of like, everything's going to be okay. Everything's getting done. So I do feel a little bit of pressure and trying to make sure that like I am available whenever I'm needed, even whenever I'm not working. But it like balances out pretty evenly. But it's like, because I know what a family business is like and how it is like during the off hours, and I've seen my parents doing it, I kind of also can like process that into into my role at the lighting master, and just make sure like everything runs smoothly. And I know that they want to know what's going on, as well as like making sure it gets flowed smoothly and they can have time off and enjoy their time off.
What about you, Kat? Do you feel a pressure working for a family business?
Honestly, no. I feel maybe even a little less pressure, because I feel like it allows us to connect on this level that most people don't understand, because it is an odd dynamic to like work with your family and like see them every day as a coworker and not just as a family member. And so there comes these times where there are situations where I see it as, oh, this is just family business. That's just how it works. But some other people might be like, oh my goodness, what's going on here? Why are they acting like they're brother and sister? Well, probably because they are brother and sister. And so I just find it easier.
From that perspective as well, I've gotten by so many clients, because it's a family-owned business and they know it's a family-owned business. The amount of clients that I've talked to that have been like, whenever I met with your dad, or multiple different things like that, they just kind of include me in with the Gretzmier family. And so I'm just kind of, it's hit a point where I'm just like, yeah, my dad, whenever you met with my dad, the owner, Dave Gretzmier. And so I just kind of accepted that role of, well, it's a family business. They assume I'm a part of the family. So I just kind of like go in with it. Yeah, that's my family.
That. I think that's great. Kat, also to help you out, I'll lay down the transparent, the vulnerability moment that Kat has gotten to see within our family business. I am not a yeller. I'm not somebody who yells a lot. And yet,
and the sister gets choked
I almost spit that out. Not gonna lie.
The blooper reel. Don't make me laugh when I'm drinking.
So I'm not a yeller, and yet I've probably yelled at my coworker / dad twice, 2 to 3 times in the past 6 months, and somehow or another, Kat is always in the room when it happens. And other employees aren't in the room when it happens. And I don't know how it is that Kat ends up being there. And every time she seems so chill. She's just kind of like, yeah, it just happens. Like, whatever. No big deal. You guys are yelling at each other. Everyone's dropping F-bombs. Like, tensions are really high. And then Kat, like, well, she'll be like, Sami, you might want to tighten up your language. That wasn't quite professional to say that thing to your coworker. Like she did. She called me out in the best way, in the right way. It was like, your point's valid, but your delivery was wrong. So here you go. Just gonna tell you how it is. And I don't know that other people can handle that kind of conflict in the same way.
Yeah, because I think it's really easy to get in this flow where you're having this conversation, like with who's someone who you've lived with your entire life, and you start getting heated, and then it's like, oh my goodness, there comes a switch where it's like, I'm no longer talking to my coworker, I'm now talking to my family member. But if you're talking to your family member about a business matter, like that is your coworker, and you have to treat that person like with any sort of respect you would treat another coworker, but also with like a little bit more like teasing here and there, just because they are family and it is going to slip out. And it's the best moments because like it really shows like how much love and commitment is put in, like with one family, like deciding to all go in on one business and work together.
I think it's funny because I can remember one of our early employees when we were working in the basement, and Barry and I would work really hard not to fight with one another. And so we had, even back then, we had
to
chats
not fight in
or
front
like
of employees,
messenger.
Right?
Oh, sorry, not fight in front of not fight in front of the employees. Thank you. And yeah, no, not fight. That's so cool. That's adorable. Lexi's sitting there going, it would have been great if you would have tried to not fight in front of your daughter, but that's a different episode of the podcast. So we're going to talk about that one later. Anyway, and so Barry and I would get going on chat, and you could just hear the keyboard. And Nick was sitting right in between us. So I sat on one end of the room and Barry sat on the other. And you could see Nick, he would start doing this. He would start crouching down. And he's like, even though you guys aren't technically yelling at each other, I can tell you're yelling at each other through the keyboard. And we're like, but we're trying. We're trying really hard.
So funny.
Anyway,
so
super fun.
I'll tee it up. What for you guys, Kat and Lexi, I feel like that could be a challenging part of the business, but maybe it's not. What do you guys find challenging about working in a family business?
I have one of like something that I find challenging working for a family business that is a client of my personal family's business. I don't know if it kind of goes off of that. So my boss, David, he sometimes when we were trying to work through it with the Belford group, trying to figure out different things, or we were trying to get our folders in and stuff like that, he would be like, hey, can you reach out to see when these are supposed to get in? And he sometimes will see it as like a personal in of like, I can go home and ask my mom, or I can go and ask my sister about trying to get this information. That sometimes puts me in like a weird spot, like, because it was just like we had an issue with something or it was taking longer. So then I was like, I'm trying to get this information because he's asking me. I feel weird going to my family member instead of like someone that we are a client of. And so it's like a weird balance sometimes of like, so I just try and like avoid the Belford group altogether. If I see anything from the Belford group, I am not a part of it, except the only thing I see is when we get our invoices in, and that's it. That is the only thing of the Belford group that I try to see or part of it. But at one point before we like created that boundary of like, nope, we're going to keep these two separate. It just kind of would like be weird when we were trying to figure out when we were going to get this in or when we'd get our banners in, or if everything got processed. It was like, hey, Lexi, can you do this? And I was like, yeah, I can. I'm not going to go home and ask about it. I'll email about it on like company time, because I just feel weird going into my personal life to do that. But that was kind of like a weird, like awkward balance of like trying to figure that out. So,
Kat, what about you?
Challenging parts of working for a family business.
I think for me, it's the idea that I feel like I need to put forth a little more effort. Like I have a lot more to prove because not only have you guys like had this like outstanding relationship with my dad for the last however long, like I also like learned to like build this connection with you guys, and I feel like through the small connections that we have through life, it's made us closer. And I it kind of just seems like a little family. And then it's like you have your own family inside a family business, even though you're not a family.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you're in a position where you're like, I really want to impress these people more so than I would whenever you work a job where it's just kind of like a corporate office, or if you have like this set of people that none of them are related. It's you find deeper connections and you want to prove yourself more, which can be a bad thing, but in the end is a good thing.
Your strength becomes your weakness.
Yes.
I can relate to that a lot because I'm like, if I make a little mistake, I'm like super hard on myself because I was like I try to like be my best and like make sure everything looks good and I get everything done right. And so because it's such a small business that I'm working for, I'm really close with like my bosses and everything. So anytime I make a mistake, like I get really hard on myself more than I would in previous jobs because I was like, no, like this is like my family. Like I can't make this mistake. So
I feel that even from in comparison to my like corporate days, that there are days that I would show up and truly just coast. Like, you know what? I wasn't really getting paid hourly. Nobody was super keeping track of my work. I would come, put in a solid half butt effort, and then go home and call it a day. And now I feel a whole lot more pressure when it's like, no, if I have a day where I don't have full energy or full effort towards it, I the person who I'm, screwing over is not big corporation, but it's your parents, it's your family. Like that's who's losing out, and that's feels
Yeah.
weightier. We talked about most challenging part. What do you guys think is one of the better parts? What's something you really enjoy or appreciate about working in a family business?
I like really appreciate like how close we are. Like, whenever we're talking back and forth, like we joke a lot more than I would in previous jobs, or like we'll go and tell different stories about different stuff, like learning different things. I think that's a lot of fun. But also, I really like that I'm like closer with my bosses. So, say I'm having a bad day, or I'm not feeling good, or something like that, like, and I just like need a day off, or I need some time. Like, it's super easy to be like, hey, I'm not, it's just not my day. Is it okay? And they're just super understanding, way more than me being like, if I call in, they're going to be upset, or there's something going to happen and I'm going to be super behind on work and then all of these things. But like with like working for a family owned business, like they're just super understanding and like, no, yeah, like of course, like we'll see you tomorrow. Like feel better. Let us know if you need anything. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree on that. Like there are times where I just in other jobs it would be a I'm sick, I'm taking a sick day, but it's actually like communicating and be like I'm not having a good day. I need to take some time off even though I'm not sick. And like just having them be there and be like, yeah, no, I get that and that's totally okay. I love that about this job actually. I think another like great pro of this job whenever it comes to like being within family business is that like it felt like there was already this like connection with all of us. Like there's this little piece of connection that we all understood that like honestly like it felt like almost instantly brought us together in some sort of way. And like we had this foundation of our relationship that we could like lean on to. And I think whenever you grow up in a family business, you realize that a lot of other people that grow up in family business have a similar lifestyle to yours. So it's also finding those connections in people of like, oh my gosh, you also have a parent who will talk about billing in the middle of dinner. And it's like, that's crazy. That normally doesn't happen with other people. And then like being able to connect on that level and find these like connections that you normally don't have with other people.
And I like instantly connected at the lighting master. Like there was no like remember when you start a new job, there's like an awkward transition, but like with the lighting master, it's like I instantly like felt like I belonged. Like I instantly was like, yeah, I've been here for forever. Like, so that's probably one of the things I also love is that I was just like instantly brought into the family, instantly felt like I belonged, and like everything was great. So that's one thing I really like about it.
I think that another advantage, and I'm not sure that at your age either of you will appreciate it, and probably for a while, maybe you do appreciate it, but you both have gotten more responsibility and more job training at a younger age than what you might have to have. Like I think in other places you would have needed to have a degree, more experience, you would have started in a lower level position. And you've both been given, like, Kat, you're the point person for customer service. And I know, Lexi, you do a lot of customer service. And Lexi's learning a whole lot about how to run the office part of the business, doing payroll and invoicing and things like that. And at 24, it's kind of unusual to have the kind of responsibility that both of you have. Kat, not 24. Kat just recently celebrated her 21st birthday. And I think that's another advantage. And I want to kind of zoom out just a little bit because this can sound a whole lot like, oh, well, you guys have this like, kumbaya over there. Look at your little, happy small business commune, where you're swapping kids around. But I want to make sure we also make this applicable to other family businesses, and also maybe even if you're looking at corporate. It's kind of like one of the jobs I worked, we hired people, and if we were asking about somebody's background, if they had been raised on a farm, like my deputy director they instantly got a second interview. Like he's like, I'm telling you, if you were a kid on a farm, there's stuff that is learned that is that we couldn't teach them in years and years of training. And then, so I would say if you are in a corporate environment or a family business environment and you get to know, like, tell me about yourself, tell me about your background and history, and you hear that somebody has either worked for a family business or their family owned a business, because sometimes it'll come up when you're like, tell me a little bit about yourself. I think that is worthwhile because there is more that is caught than what you could teach in just, and I'm not saying every family business is amazing, but they will have picked up on things that maybe someone that has just had parents that work in corporate environments, nothing wrong with that, but there's just some differences for that.
Sort of on that note, Kat and Lexi, I'm curious, what advice would you have for people who are either considering being an employee of their own family's business or somebody else's family business? What advice would you give?
I think one thing is you kind of have to be flexible. You have to be flexible with what you do. Because I mean, when I started at the Lighting Master, I had like one job, and then now I've got like 6 jobs under one. And so it's just like every week I feel like I'm given a new task or like a new responsibility. And so just kind of, you got to be kind of go with the flow, because with it being a family owned business, like they trust you a lot more. And so like once they notice they can put that trust in you, they're just like, cool, I'm going to give you more responsibility. So you just kind of got to be able to like, just like roll with the punches and go with the flow. And if something changes, something changes.
Yeah, absolutely. I would split it into 2 questions. I think it's very different between joining somebody else's family business and joining your own family business. If I were to give like advice for someone joining somebody else's family business, I would just say to like keep an open mind and understand that sometimes there are conversations that go on within the room that seem like they have nothing to do with what's going on, but they actually do. And also be okay for a lot of side tangents of like personal life stuff, because that's just how it goes. I feel like every family business that I've been a part of, all of 2, is that you spend a good amount of time just kind of like talking about your life, because these are people that are like very much so involved in your life. And so just keep an open mind to that like there will be like, there's going to be family talk, and that's just how it's going to go. And I think for joining your own family business, what I would give advice for is trying to keep communication like very high regards, of like making sure that whenever you are in work hours, you can talk about work stuff, and whenever you're at home, you can talk about home stuff. I've seen businesses where like they fold over too much to where you're at home and all you do is talk about work, or you're at work and all you do is talk about home, and it doesn't help on either sides. And so like setting almost sometimes some harsh boundaries of like, hey, this is what we're going to do whenever we're doing this, and this is what we're going to do whenever we're doing that. I know that Sami actually will refer to her parents as different terms whenever she's in different places, and I think things like that can be really beneficial, because sometimes whenever you are around your family so often, whenever it's a personal environment and a work environment, you have to find like how to communicate through that.
I think that's so true. One of the things that I did early on when joining the family business is if my mom would try to bring something up on a weekend, I'd be like, oh, hold on 1 second. Let me write down the time so I can make sure to go clock in and put this time on my billable time. And I feel like it was an interesting spot because I didn't have to say, no, let's not have a work conversation. I was like, that's fine. If you want to have a work conversation on a Saturday, you totally can. You're going to pay me for it. And so I'm going to write down the time and we're going to go put it into the time tracking so that you, and it just sort of added that filter of like, oh, right, you're right. That is a work conversation. And either could decide, yes, I do want to have this right now, or let's hang tight till Monday on that one. So holding that boundary is important.
I think what we do now is more like we try really hard on evenings and weekends not to be super task based talking about work, but we're both the kind of people when you had a job in corporate where we might riff on our work or talk about our work or brainstorm or tell a funny story or things like that. And so I like to say that we try to do more like dreaming or big picture-y stuff where it's just like when you're sitting here and you're staring at the clouds and you're drinking a beer on the patio, like you can just expound and with the expectation of this is not, I don't expect, because this actually happened where it was like, wait, I told you to do that thing. No, I told you to do that thing on the patio. That does not count as assigning you a task and making sure that the task, we have been known to go like, oh, that's a good idea. Let me send myself a Slack, or I'm going to send you a Slack so that we'll remember that idea. But we try to do, it feels like more brainstormy, playful, fun sort of thing. So, anyway,
I also think my husband is a big help in that because the number of times that there's two things that Chris does that really makes a difference. One, he hangs out with us on the patio, and there are times where you could tell he's really checked out of conversation, and I think that means we're too much into work. Yep. Two, there are some times where I get personal updates at work that I completely forget to pass on to him. And so he's like, I feel like I'm like 3 weeks behind in the family news. Like, I don't know anything that's going on. What is happening? And I'm like, oh, I heard about this at work. And then Lexi came over and it was just the two of us. And then I chatted with her and I heard all of these things. And you're right. You weren't there for that. And so he's a really good like litmus test for us both ways of make sure there's enough personal outside of work and make sure there's not too much work outside of personal.
Well, and he's also a good example because his work is related to none of us. And I know more about conveyor belts and chicken plants than I ever would have needed to know on the planet because I'm interested in his work life. And I'll be curious about why something is a problem, especially if he gets a work call on a weekend, which is pretty frequent when they're doing an installation. And so then you're like, well, and he'll want to like kind of talk a little bit through like, oh, this thing, and I need to work it out. And so he's a great example of how like it's okay to talk a little bit about work on the weekends, because that's what we do as humans, but just being careful about it not being the only conversation that you're having.
Trying to make the divide of this is what happened at work versus we work together and this is what happened at work, and we can like the different thing of the divide between that.
I think that's applicable if you work in a corporate environment and you hang out with your friends, your work friends a lot, and you can get to the point where the only thing you have in common is work too. And so just expanding that to outside of just family business.
I have sort of one more question for us today. and I'm putting both Kat and Lexi on the spot. Do either of you have any like hot takes about family business? Any, like, ooh, let's say this and then we'll wrap up because I want to get out of here. I don't know. Any kind of hot takes? I'm curious. I also want to just clarify, both Kat and Lexi are Gen Z, and I think you guys bring like a spicier energy at times to things. So I'm curious. I want to know. Us millennials are hiding under the desk, afraid of the world. You guys are frolicking through fields saying nothing matters. So I don't know. What do you guys feel? What's something people wouldn't necessarily know about family business?
If I had to give a hot take, and this would be working within like my own personal family business and not the company that I work at now. I work at the Belford Group. I used to work with my family, the Lighting Master. And I'd say if there's like a hot take, it's that some people shouldn't do it because you can get really lazy. And that is what happened for me. Like I worked within my family business, and like there were a lot of times that I would slack off and I just wouldn't do anything because you have this security of like, well, it's my family. And I think that there are some people that shouldn't do it for that exact reason.
Kat, you've told me before there were times you were like, what's my dad going to do? Fire me? Like whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. I remember in my interview for this company, I told you I was lazy whenever I worked within a family business, and I don't know how it's going to work out. Like I was open and honest about it, and it did work out well. Like I do see myself in a different position where it's like I am no longer within my family business. I need to be working harder, and I do. I hope I do.
I do also want to give you some slack, Kat, because you interviewed for the job and started the job right before your 19th or 20th birthday. So, I mean, when you claim to be lazy, there is an element where you were still a teenager. So, yeah, there's some maturity, I think, just naturally that's occurring. So, let me cut you some slack.
Absolutely.
Lexi, what's your hot take?
I don't really know if this is a hot take. I mean, maybe. I think one thing with working for a family business is like sometimes the arguments get a little bit more heated because that's like your family members. So like I've definitely at my current job witnessed a couple arguments that have resulted in storming out, or like when my boss went home for the day because he was so upset, stuff like that. But also I kind of like it because I get a lot of drama. I get all the family drama. That my little hot take is there's a lot of tea in it. And so I hear it's funny because like Kat knows about what's going on in my life from what she hears, or like in our family from what she hears from them, like ranting or anything. I know all about Kat's life. Not all about her life. I know all about what's going on, like in relationships and stuff or family things. I know all about it. Plus anything of like with like Janie, like Kat's sister, I also know about all of that. And it's like, I'm just sitting here a fly on the wall being the youngest. I was like, this is kind of fun. Like I get to hear all the drama and everything.
Sitting there eating popcorn.
I know, my little hot take is, this is interesting. Like, it's just, you get to hear anytime there's like drama at home. I'm like, oh, what happened? What did they do? And I don't know, I just think it's fun.
I think that's a very interesting perspective because I think somebody could say like, oh my gosh, there's so much family drama. We're just trying to do business. And you or take it as just a little more nonchalantly and be like, this is kind of fun. Look, I don't even have to watch a soap opera. I can just watch what's going on around me.
And it's also drama that you are less invested in. It's not to say that you're not invested in, but it's not you. It's not your family drama. And like, oh my gosh, can you believe what Josh said this weekend? And we're all like worked up and in a tizzy because Josh was Josh or whatever it was. You're like, you can sort of take whatever side you want to take in a situation and be invested without it being so personally impacting.
Mm-hmm. But like I still know like what's going on because I know both parties in it, but it's not like it has no effect on my life. So I think that I like that. That's my little hot take. It's fun. You got to just be on your toes. You never know what's going to happen.
I have a hot take, and I would say that it is put clear roles in position. It is so tempting to be a little bit like what Lexi and the line item on job descriptions that say all other duties as assigned. And I think I think the better you do this is all businesses. I'm like, clarify the roles so that way people know when they're responsible for something and when they're not. And there's a difference between all hands on deck, and you may have to be asked to do something. And am I responsible? And I'm going to get yelled at if this task or this thing, this function doesn't happen. There's a difference between this idea of helping us out and making it but what am I getting evaluated on? What will my raises be based on? Will they be based on how many favors I said yes to? Or is it more based on like my work product and my how I deliver? So that would be my hot take for family business. I'm guessing what hot take means for those of you that are Gen X and not millennial and Gen Z. I think that just means quick observation.
It's usually a
Final
controversial
thoughts?
opinion.
Is that what it means?
It's usually a little bit of a controversial opinion.
Oh, well, then I don't know that mine was a hot take. Mine was kind of like here's your takeaway.
I like what you said about that though, because like defining like what your role is, because in my role at this family business, I can list you what I do, and then I always end up with what my job description is. At the very end I say, and any and everything my bosses don't want to do, because it's just kind of what I say, because sometimes they'll be like, well, I don't want to make this call, well, I don't want to do this. I'll just be like, just give it to me, I'll take it, like I'll do it. And so like that's one thing of like define the roles, because sometimes like in a family business, I don't my role isn't like does not end at anything. Like I can do anything that there is. Sometimes I'll like have to go do a meeting for them, or I'll have to go pick up something, like pick up supplies, or I'll do payroll, or I'll do billing, or anything like that. So there's never really like defining the role is definitely something that should happen, but doesn't always happen in a family business.
I love it. I think that's great. Thank you guys both for being here today. I know there might have been a little bit of nervousness of being on this side of the mic and talking about your business, Lexi, and all the things, but I'm so grateful for both of you. And honestly, I'm really glad you guys are on the teams that you're on and in the places that you are. It's been a lot of fun, this journey. And thank you guys for chatting with us a little bit more about what it's like to work at a family business that may not be your own family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Well, until next time, everyone, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you guys go be freaking awesome.